Okay. I think we are live right now. Amazing. Happy to be back. We have a comment from Alex Heap saying, woohoo, hello everyone.
Hello, Alex.
Jordi saying hello.
Hello.
Nice. Where are you people joining from? Please send your comments. By the way, where are you girls right now? Barcelona?
Sant Cugat.
Sant Cugat, okay. Okay, this
I'm in
could have been
Barcelona.
a live event, right?
Yeah, we're both.
Yeah, look at this. Hello from Krakow. Amazing. Hi, Beata.
Hi, Beata.
Jordi says he's in Barcelona. Karin, Barcelona. Valentina, Barcelona as well. Sophie, Barcelona. There are people from Barcelona. Cool. People, how much do you miss in-person events? And who's willing to join an in-person event in the following months? I'm happy to see this. You, Adriana?
Yeah, I am too.
Megan?
Yes.
I miss networking, actually having a drink with people.
Definitely.
Maria Polo. Look at this. Sophie says, oh my God, yes, please in person. Thank you. All right. Cool. So I will start by presenting ProductTank Barcelona. So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining tonight. This is our first event 2022. And I want to start, as always, by explaining what's ProductTank. ProductTank is the world's largest product community made by product people for product people. We are already in more than 220 cities around the world. And we are also part of Mind the Product, which is the global professional network for product people. And they organize conferences around the world, in London, in Singapore, and in San Francisco. This year, I heard a lot of people are heading to San Francisco for the May edition. And together, our mission is to make product people more successful by coming together to further our craft. Tonight's panel, we have Megan Murphy and Adriana Landaverde. So Megan is currently the VP of Product at Hotjar, where she leads its design, data, and product teams. She has lived and led product teams in San Francisco, Brazil. By the way, I heard her Brazilian accent is perfect. In Spain as well. And she's fully distributed in environments on a mix of B2C and B2B products at Skyscanner, Microsoft, N26, where we shared an experience together, and a few early stage startups. And Adriana is currently a product advisor for early stage startups in Europe. Formerly, she was Chief Product Officer at the UK's sustainability investment platform called Climate Invest. And Adriana has been a product leader for 15 plus years, leading product and design teams in Silicon Valley, Europe, and UK, having witnessed 3 successful exits in the companies where she worked at. So without further details, let's jump into tonight's discussion, which is NFTs, not F-word tokens. And this discussion is about women in product. So maybe Megan and Adriana, if you let me, I'm going to start with rapid fire questions as a sort of an icebreaker. So maybe an easy one. And let's start with Adriana. How did you start in product?
Same industry, new function. I remained in the industry, and I was given the chance to learn something new, and it worked for me.
Cool.
I started in product completely by accident, building a product and working with all the disciplines to make it possible before I knew that the job was called product manager. And at the startup where I was working in San Francisco at the time, the VP of product was like, "Hey, you're a builder. You should join the product team." And then I had to Google what that meant. And I guess that's where it started.
That's lucky. And amazing that it started by luck, let's say, and now it's your passion. Lovely. Okay, two more icebreakers. If you have to go to an island and take one business book and one fiction book, which books would you take? And this question is dedicated to my friend Alex Hip. Maybe Megan?
So I think the business book would probably be $1 Trillion Coach, which was written by a couple of Google execs. Yeah, that book just inspires me every time to like make things more simple and lead with simple principles. And then I think on a personal book, well, if I were on an island with only one book, I would probably need to stay optimistic about how I would get off that island. So I would probably turn to a book from childhood that brought me a lot of inspiration and belief in myself, which is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
Nice. Yeah. Nice one. Adriana?
I still need to read team topologies, which is a topic that I just feel it's just so relevant for a product leader. So this will be the business one. And the personal one would be The Power of Now, because if I was in an island on my own, I should be enjoying the now.
Absolutely. Good answers, by the way. So last one before jumping into the juicy part. Which are two passions that you have outside of the world of product management? Adriana?
Sleep. As I now have 2 children, I learned the importance of sleep in my productivity, in my mood. So I'm obsessed about improving the quality of my sleep, because I really think that's the key for my functioning. And apart from that, music. I can't wait to go back to concerts, festivals. I need more of that in my life.
I won't copy Adriana's answers, although I would if I had thought of them first. I would say two interests outside of product are physical challenges. I used to run marathons, but got tired of really annoying injuries. So I try to constantly find new physical challenges. Fun fact is I recently got married, and for our honeymoon, we climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. So a little crazy to use that as our honeymoon, but it was really fun. And another passion outside of product is making things with my hands, physical products or reconditioning things. I'm really into restoring old furniture. So if you need, since there's a big Barcelona contingent, I can tell you all the secondhand shops that have great used furniture around here.
I'm taking note. Perfect. Perfect. Cool. So people, please feel free to send your questions. As we are going to have an open conversation, and this is a safe space for everyone to ask anything you want to know from our amazing speakers tonight. So I'm going to start with a question, which is, what are the key challenges that you faced as you were starting your career as a product manager? Of course, this related to the fact that you both are women, and that's what we are speaking about tonight. So maybe Megan, can you start?
Sure. Yeah. So I mentioned that I got into product by accident. I think one of the challenges for me at the time was, with a few exceptions, I found it difficult to find a natural mentor and somebody who could help me through. especially learning a new discipline where I mean, I'm not kidding when I say that I used to go to the bathroom, like pre-COVID, go to the bathroom and Google like terminology that I was hearing with my team. And I think that finding mentorship in general was tough for me at that time. It could have been attributed to the fact that I was nervous to ask, for sure. But I also felt a little bit of competition, or sort of like a chip on the shoulder of other more senior women back then, who felt sort of like they had, I mean, rightfully so, they had such a tough ride that it didn't necessarily need to be easier for the younger ones coming up. And this was a very strange thing for me to experience. Not only were there challenges working with more senior men on the team, but I found it difficult in the early days getting the women on my team to lend a hand that wasn't lent to them before. And that's something that has definitely shaped my leadership style now. I hope for the better, because I do want to offer that hand and not make it harder just for the sake of feeling like it needs to be earned that way.
Well, inspiring. Adriana?
Yeah, so from my side, I did the first product management role between my first and second year at Stanford. And inevitably, I was looking for local companies. So Google came on top companies for me to explore, and computer science degree was required. So I guess I quickly got to this hypothesis that product is not for me because I need a computer science degree. Luckily, I realized after some research that it was not a requirement. It was a requirement for Google and other companies, but not for Expedia, which was the first company that I joined. And I guess when I said that same industries, because I had travel experience, and then it was easy for me to learn something new under that context. Expedia was quite organized in structure in the way they did product, so that did help. It was, now that I see it, it was old school for what I'm doing right now, but it was great as a learning experience. And then I guess I was lucky because I found a very even when I didn't have the product management title, I found a very pragmatic manager in Trulia back in San Francisco. He just had a checklist and he focused on skills. He like completely skipped the title phase, and he was asking me like, how have you used analytics? Have you released a feature in the past? And I could say yes. There are many managers that are not like that, but I guess I lucked out because he was extremely pragmatic at assessing my needs, my skills, rather than just looking at how many years of product management have you had, which would have been at that point almost zero.
Totally. Yeah, I'm listening a lot lately that companies are moving from the experience-based hiring into more of a skills-based hiring, and I think this is going to be a game changer in the industry, because right now we are all fighting for the same resources around the same companies. Cool.
Or even more, even like taking it further though, the skills themselves, I think you need to have a really thoughtful hiring manager to even see the potential for those skills.
Yeah.
So I think like stretching it further, we should, there's the experience, which is looking at a CV and essentially judging a book by its cover, although of course a shortcut that's whatever, flawed and helpful at the same time. And then there's skills or competencies, and then it's looking for potential. Like are what this person thinks and how they tick and how they approach problems, is that translatable if we invest in it? And I think this is part of the problem with getting more women in a discipline where there's fewer as a distribution of all product managers than there were 10 years ago. I think that's part of the challenge, is like investing the time, because we all want to hire, like you said, Guido, we're also competing all for the same talent pool. So then are hiring managers really willing to invest in that upskilling to make the skills translatable?
And I've seen really good results, to be honest. I have a friend who is managing a fintech in Latam. He was looking for someone for core banking, a PM for core banking, and he couldn't find anyone for a long time. And then he found an accountant who was really willing to get into product management. And he said, okay, I'm going to invest some time here, but he has the skills. And right now he's super happy about it. So yeah, we need to get more creative when it comes to hiring. Okay, let's move on to the second question, which is how these challenges shifts as you become a product leader. So it's not the same game when you're an entry level PM, let's say, than when you're and you're working maybe in as an individual contributor, than when you move to become a product leader. So how these challenges shift as you face this transition. Adriana, do you want to start?
Yeah, so a whole different kind of animal. It was, again, I mean, I guess the similarity was, in order to be a leader, you need experience as a leader. So I could see myself transitioning as a leader within the same company, jumping into a new company when you've only been an individual contributor and you want to become a leader. That I found that very hard. So let's say it took me a little bit longer. Then I think when I started being a product leader, many changes were happening in my career. I moved to London. I started in fintech. I started as an individual contributor at Nutmeg, and then I was promoted to leader. So it was probably the steepest learning curve that I've had, because I needed to learn about domain, needed to learn about industry, needed to learn how to coach people, and there were many changes happening at once, and it wasn't the most welcoming of product. I think at that point there were many changes in management. And since product just changes so much across companies, like, we want to believe that a product manager is a product manager. The reality is that every single company where I work, that a product manager is, the definition of the role is different. So, and it was a moment at Nutmeg in which there were many shifts. So also coming together and trying to face a new leadership team, that was also a challenge. So I felt like I was juggling so many things at once, that even just the notion of executing on product needed to be reprioritized in my list of things to do, because the first thing that I could see I needed to do was restoring the faith in product, and even explaining why was product and why were we valuable and so on. Because without removing that noise, I just felt that I couldn't execute. So there was a period, let's say, in which I was just pure emotional intelligence focused, rather than what is the roadmap, what should we be doing, because I needed to get, I guess, to a neutral point, the trust that they had in product. And I guess the what I found difficult is, as a leader, sometimes I have been represented by chief commercial officer or chief technology officer within the leadership team, and not having, I guess now that I'm looking at companies, I see more frequently the role of a CPO, but that's not usually the case. So if you don't have a product leader that represents you at leadership team level, the decision making just changes. It becomes more short term, or it becomes more marketing related, or it becomes more shipping code related. So I think that in order for me, what I have found is that in order for me to thrive, there clearly needs to be someone, call it CPO or VP of product or whatnot, representing the whole function of product, within the leadership team, because otherwise the incentives are quite different.
Thank you for sharing your experience, Adriana. Megan, your experience is similar. Tell us.
I think there's some points of intersection. So the first time that I became a people manager in product, the context is that I was relatively new to product in general. So I had been an individual contributor for just 4 years. And I was certainly not the most senior person on the team where I worked. I was offered the opportunity. I was living in San Francisco, working at a startup there, and I was offered the opportunity to move to Brazil. One of the co-founders of the company where I was working was from Brazil. Guido mentioned I speak some Portuguese. If there's any Brazilians here, you'll surely see through my good pronunciation. But so I was offered the opportunity to move and hire the first product and design team at this company, at their office down in Florianopolis, if you know the area. And I have this habit of that I have to work against in my role, as I'm sure speaking to a product audience that you can empathize with, which is I need to work against my intuition and train it with more questions and more data so that I'm not always just like going by the punches. But in this case, I really did. And before even thinking about the job or the offer or what it meant to go into leadership, and essentially that my move to a different country was conditional upon saying, yes, I'll become a manager and I'll hire this team, even though I've never done this before. But I didn't think through it. I didn't ask any questions, didn't ask where I was going, what I should expect, what would I be paid. I just said yes, because I thought that was the opportunity that I was looking for. I had been interested in living abroad for my whole life. So that was sort of my ticket. And my first foray into product leadership was really hard because I felt completely at odds with the leadership style of my boss. And I didn't really feel that I had anybody to turn to ask questions about leadership in general, but specifically making product decisions and priorities and coaching. And so I found, for better and worse, that the best way I could do that role in a way that felt consistent with my values was to use my boss's guidance as anti-patterns and not follow it. I give you one example. I had, in this case, 2 direct reports, and my boss said to me, you need to tell this one that they're not performing as well as the other one, and everybody wants to work with the other one, so they really got to up their game, and then you can like make it competitive. And I thought, oh my God, this sounds like a bad TV show. Like, I'm not going to follow this advice, so I'm going to take my own approach and try my best. Turns out I earned the trust and the respect of both of them for not doing things like that. Luckily for me, when life took me here to Barcelona some years later, I was lucky enough at Skyscanner to go through a really helpful management program. So they really invested in leadership there. They gave us training, they gave us role playing and coaching. And even better was that they gave us the ability to opt out after 3 months. So everybody, no matter their level, was given the opportunity to say, you know what, the people leadership thing for me, I went through the training for a couple months. I gave it a shot for a couple of months, but it's not for me. And so I really appreciated that. I felt like the organization invested in my development, and that helped me better equip the people that I was leading. Since Skyscanner, I've held much broader leadership roles, and I've had really different experiences. One of them was a place where I felt like my voice didn't matter, but I don't think that was due to my gender identity. I think that was a more structural challenge around truly listening and acting on the expertise of the people who joined the company. In the other case, I'm really happy to say where I am now at Hotjar. I report to our CEO, Mohamed, and every day I'm more impressed with the ways that he makes it feel safe, no matter who you are, your background, your gender identity, any other dimension of humanity. Like, he just makes it a really safe place for us to speak our mind. We know we may disagree and need to commit. He fosters like space for people to talk, simple things. In most meeting platforms now, you can use the raise hand function. Like there's really, really small details that can help people feel like they have a voice and that it matters. And so I guess just right now, I'm lucky to have him as a leader who I do want to mirror many things he does and not just like hear what he says and do the opposite.
Amazing. People are reacting as you are speaking. These are some of the comments. Yes, leaning into impulsivity is usually a strong career choice. And Alberto highlighted your quote, Megan, follow my boss advice as an anti-pattern. I love it. So I hope your boss is there watching us. And okay.
I don't want to
really,
get everybody in trouble now, by the way. Like the takeaway is not say screw it and don't listen to anything your boss says. I'm just saying like you need to develop your own judgment muscles to know when something feels, no matter who it's coming from, if it just doesn't feel right to you, hopefully you have somebody to talk through like, hey, do you think this feels right? But please don't make the takeaway that, that I'm saying disregard everything.
Perfect. And maybe just to find like a line between what you just said, Megan, about Hotjar CEO and the freedom to disagree. There's a question from Lindsay. She says, how do you cope when you disagree profoundly with your VP's approach to products? How do you remain a cheerleader and sell what you're doing to your team, but not compromising your values? Maybe Megan, you can start as it's connected to what you just said.
So disclaimer is that there's no easy answer, and Lindsay, I'll try my best, but you of course you have to follow your humanity about this. Like I recognized a couple of years ago, just before the pandemic started, that when confronted with moments where I feel that I'm pushed beyond my values or my ethical boundaries, I will not stay. And that is a decision that I will honor for my I hope in every situation, right? I won't get it perfect, but I can't sacrifice that. So if it's about like the style of working that you don't like, but it's not in conflict with your values and you think that's something you can work through, then you can find ways to work through that, right? I think that if it's truly about like you can't bring yourself to champion the direction that you're going or the approach that in this case your product leader is taking, I hope that there's space for radical candor where you can express yourself without fear of retribution. If that's not the case, I mentioned earlier that one of the books I would bring is $1 Trillion Coach. And one of the reasons why I really like that book is because the approach they have with the coach Bill Campbell was so not what I've experienced in my career, but I would love to have this one day where you have a coach who's actually there helping you work through challenges and healthy conflict in real time with your team. And so perhaps there's somebody who can help as a more neutral moderator of a discussion, or just help if there really are strong tensions or things rooted in emotions where it's just not the best thing for one of you to lead that discussion. So I hope there's space for radical candor. I hope that it's truly not ethical or values conflict, and if it is, then I would encourage you to ask yourself if it's worth it, because one of the taglines in the whole like one-liner for this talk is, how do you create the conditions for women to thrive, survive, or worse, give up? And I'm not ashamed that I once gave up because I was pushed beyond my ethical boundaries. I'm proud of that.
Wow. Thank you, Megan. Adriana, do you feel like adding up on top of that question, or on top of that answer? Like, do you have your own experience around these kind of situations?
Yeah, I mean, I have been in a situation as a leader in which I have had to make a difficult choice of going into a roadmap direction that I didn't fully believe. So like Imagine me and see it, probably I'm your VP of product in this case, and probably you disagree with me. Now, I knew the reasons that I disagree. I knew the reasons why, we still need to take that direction. It all depends, I guess, to what Megan was saying. It all depends on the type of person that you're dealing with. Can you influence that person? Can you bring up new data? Can you, explain your reasoning? And can that person provide a good reasoning for them to, still going in the direction that is against to what you think? Negotiating as well. That there was, when I was in this difficult situation, there was one person who came up and said, "Look, I'm happy to do it for a few months, but like, where is the light at the end of the tunnel? For how long do we need to keep on working on this and so on?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's fair enough. And now make sure that this doesn't last more than X months, and the next projects that we're going to be working on are going to be a different kind, focused on customer centric and so on." Just to give you the context, it was like extremely regulatory heavy. Our roadmap, it was a time of MiFID II, GDPR, I don't know how many other regulations, and that took over the roadmap. And I hated that we were all working in this, but in the end, it's table stakes, right? And there's just so much the organization can do. So but there came a point in which I said, like, when we accomplish this, that's when we start shifting to customer-centric decision-making, which in the end, regulation is customer-centric in a different kind of way. But I think that what you need to question yourself is, how can I get to some level of agreement with this person? And if that person is fully, closed and there's a wall, then it's going to impact your experience, and it's mainly going to block you, your growth, your development, and it may not be the right fit for you.
Thank you, Adriana, for sharing. We have a question from Jordi. He says he needs a quick tip from your huge experience. So his question is how to start from scratch a product organization on a 4 billion worldwide company without dying in the journey. So I don't know if the question is related to how to start as a product manager or how to start a product organization, but maybe we can think of it like which are your tips for someone who wants to get into product management? Because you mentioned a few ways. Adriana, you said something that for me it's one of the ways I observed in the past that many people follow to get into product management, which is get in a company that has PMs in a certain industry and then try to make the transition. Then you got Megan's by accident methodology. But after all of your years as PMs, which are your pro tips to get into product management? Maybe I'm gonna start with Megan because I see Adriana is still thinking.
I can, just in case. I understood the question a little bit differently. I understood it as there's an organization that's already quite sizable, but they don't have a product culture. I'm going to go with that first.
All right. Yeah.
So, and without dying in the journey. So that's funny. Okay. So first I assume, Jordi, that you're already there. And so I would wonder, what are the disciplines or roles or departments that are most influential in the company? So to get to, I'm going to take a guess here and assume that a $4 billion market cap probably has a sales team, I'm going to guess. So let's run with that as an example. If in this case, sales is a very influential part of the organization, and you want to create a product mindset or a culture, I would start with trying to speak the language of my sales team. And I would start with asking them, what makes you tick? What keeps you up at night? What are the challenges that you have in serving customers? What are the reasons that you're not closing deals? Who are we losing to? How, so I would sort of treat, in this example, the sales organization as the customers. I would do discovery on those kinds of questions. And then I would make sure to craft my narrative around how product could help them achieve their goals by making a few small changes. Just start, okay, maybe we need to hire these roles. Maybe we need to just get scrappy and with the people that we have, go operate like this product culture that you want for a period of time. Like, set some goals that you think will help bring the outcomes that part of the organization needs. And of course, you can adapt this to wherever you see fit. If it's not sales, but it's, I don't know, marketing, if it's engineering, if it, whatever it might be, but speak the language of the most influential areas, get their buy-in, show them that you are a genuine partner. And, it takes a while for cultures to change, as I'm sure everybody here has their own lived experiences to empathize with that. So it's not like, you're going to start with like, okay, we're going to build out this research team and that we need a visual designers and then motion designers. And then start with a way that feels approachable and remind everybody that you are indeed on the same team and you want to help them solve their problems too.
So Jordi also asked PMO. That is a tricky one because I think that the impact of PMO, I'm not saying, I was recently having this conversation with another product leader. I'm not saying that PMO is not helpful, but I think if a company has embraced PMO as a way to deliver or value or execute, that is a very difficult culture to change. And I don't know your context, Jordi. Hopefully you have the support of a few allies in the leadership team of your company, because it would require people rethinking their jobs, massive changes in ways of working. So I think that's a very tricky one. Now, as with any other product, start small. I think I agree with Megan. That's the best you can do. Start small with, maybe you can put together a small team with a clear deliverable. But it sounds like you always need sponsorship for someone senior in your organization. So that level of understanding of who would be your best ally, your best sponsor within the leadership team could be step number one. And then design the right team to start showing results, because the best way to convince people is by showing results, right? Like when they see, oh my God, they were able to deliver something in 2 weeks, that speaks to people rather than the theory, which, it doesn't fully convince.
Totally. I was part of a company that worked with a very strong PMO culture, and it resonates a lot, Adriana. Cool. So there are tons of questions now. $1 million questions like this one. Jennifer is asking, how do you balance daily stuff, firefighting, strategy, with making your employees better and coaching them? Maybe we can start with Adriana this time.
I think, Jennifer, the same way that for a product manager, their responsibility towards the engineering team and the design, the product designer is massive. And I think that's, where I would like a product manager to design, to spend most of their time in like building the right things. The same way I think as a product leader, my focus is coaching the people in my team, because there's I feel such strong responsibility for these people to perform well. And I think my role as a facilitator of that coaching, but also removing obstacles from them, it's my key priority. I'm with you, right? Like, especially since I have had my track record in product management is on startups. Firefighting is, every day. Wearing multiple hats is every day. But I feel a strong responsibility to prioritize people's development as first priority. I think, if there is firefighting, sometimes is noise. And I think I have learned that cutting through the noise, it's an art. It's something that the more you practice, the more you get there. But firefighting sometimes is quite reactive and not necessarily thinking about what's really driving value. For firefighting can be, oh my god, we need to do this logo for the pitch deck, and because of that the product designer is not available. So like that is the part of the negotiation that as a product leader I need to have with the CEO probably, or with the folks that are working in fundraising, on explaining the importance to keep the teams focused on actually delivering value. Not saying that a pitch deck doesn't deliver value, because it does, but there are different moments in which you can engage with different people. So being a product manager or a product leader is not easy, right? But I think that the clearer your priorities are, then hopefully that makes it easy to carve out time for that.
Amazing.
I think Adriana captured it nicely. I'll just add briefly, especially since there's a bunch of other questions that have come in. As time goes on, I get more comfortable letting fires burn. And I know that that's not like, it's easier said than done, but putting my team first is non-negotiable. So when I have a one-on-one, you mentioned making employees better and coaching them. I have one-on-ones with each of my direct reports every week, and there are times where I need to change the time, but I don't cancel them unless I'm like literally on holiday. I don't deprioritize my time to ask what are your challenges, or say, hey, I noticed this challenge and this is how I would expect you to meet this bar, right? So investing in my team first and foremost. I started to get more comfortable letting fires burn, honestly, when I got to Hotjar, because again, our CEO is so pragmatic and he champions the notion of focus louder and clearer than any other leader I've ever worked with. And so he gives me the space to do the same. And he gives me the space to also say to my peers, a recent example is a customer request came in through our sales team, and it came to me, and I spoke with our my counterpart and just said like, hey, here's the reality of like even going further and investigating how to please this one customer with this one lead. This is at the expense of these other things that are in our collective best interest. What would be the trade-off that you would make? And I find that the more often that I lead with context, whether it's my team that I lead, or with my peers, or with my boss, the more that I make the trade-offs really clear, the more often than not, they come along the journey with me and say, oh yeah, okay, this isn't relatively as important as what we're already doing. There are times where I'm proven wrong, and I enjoy that because it helps me usually put things better into context in disciplines beyond the ones that I lead. So I'm also very open to the priorities changing if they're truly compelling, because I'm certainly not always right, and I don't want to lead or act that way. So I think like putting the team first, bringing people along for the journey with you, leading with context, and showing them that there's no such thing as a free lunch. Everything's a trade-off. Come along with me, and let's see how we would approach this together, is usually the way that I can let fires burn and sleep at night.
Amazing. Yeah, I feel like you both could write a book together. Okay, so many good questions. Okay, maybe what I'll do to make the best of the 10 minutes that we have left is ask directly one of you and let the other person answer another question. So that said, this question is gonna be for you, Adriana. Get ready. Right. This is from my friend Natalia. From she used to work at N26. She says, "Do you have any advice how to best leverage a mentorship relationship with a product leader outside of your organization to grow as a PM?" This is basically considering that they don't know which is your context at the company.
Well,
Any tips?
yes. So recently there was a lady. I had spoken for another part of organization, which shouldn't be mentioned here. And she reached out to me after the talk, and we connected on LinkedIn. And she said, when the time comes that I become a product manager, I'm sure I'm going to need a lot of support. Can I reach out then? And she reached out to me last week. And she's in a very tough position. Like, now that she's a product analyst now, I think. And she's in a very tough position. Confusion of what her role is supposed to be, no guidance, and so on, right? And I would say, Natalia, reach out to, I think if you need to reach out to a lot of people, and not all of them are going to respond. But since it's so difficult for a woman, I will probably reach out to women because might be a higher likelihood to get a response. If you already have their attention, which hopefully you do, then I guess the best way to leverage that relationship is to come with I find myself being more helpful at mentorship when I have clear objectives of the person that I'm speaking to. And I enjoy learning about their context, because then I can assess if they're in a good setup for success, and then add my advice. But I think sometimes when you say, like, could you mentor me, that's just so vague that, to be honest, I really don't know, because I don't know what you need, right? And people that are going to be more seen, people in product by design are going to be very busy. Product leaders are probably even a little bit busier. The more you can structure and give specifics about what you're needing, that doesn't mean that the conversation ends there. But for the first 30 minutes, 45 minutes, I don't know how long you have, make it quite structured. And probably even send the questions in advance, so that person can come ready to react to what you need.
Great. Okay, perfect. Natalia probably is already happy with all the tips you gave, Adriana. So this one is this question is for you, Megan, and maybe this is the last question, and then another one for both, because we are getting close to the end. But this question is from Michela, another friend of the house, and she's asking how much a product designer is involved into the process of product development at Hotjar, maybe.
Sure. So thank you for the question, Michaela. I would say that I've seen this work differently in different organizations. At Hotjar, we have product designers embedded within each of our squads. Squads are multidisciplinary teams, mostly, or more often than not, product managers, product designers, and engineers of various disciplinary backgrounds, back-end, front-ends, full stack, so forth. There's a reason why the product manager, the tech lead or squad lead, and the product designer together are known as the trio, and it's because of that three-legged stool. So I'm very proud that at Hotjar, product design is represented within each of the squads. Our squads are organized into tribes. We also have other disciplines within experience design, like content design and user research. So how much are they involved in the development of the products? Hugely. In fact, we, at least if there is some experience for our users to have, a product designer is involved. Where I think what's unsaid in your question that I think is important is how much are the product designers involved in the prioritization or in the decisions in the first place on what to build or which problems to solve. And on this one, I would say not necessarily unique to product design, but any discipline other than product management, I have found, this is where I diverge from Hotjar specifically, and I speak more broadly. I have found that like a synonym for product manager could be prioritization manager. I'm not saying it should be, but it could be, right? Because a product manager is accountable for prioritizing what the other folks in their squad or team might be working on. This is where I think the challenge is with product design and other disciplines, is making sure that they advocate for what they believe should be prioritized. And this is usually where I see the breakdown happen. And more often than not, in most organizations, people feel like product prioritization happens in a vacuum, and then it comes out as a reveal, and then things are prioritized, and then the other folks are like, wait, what about this? I mentioned, we need to do this, or we have some experience debt, or we have some technical debt, or we have decision debt, or whatever it might be, insert type of debt here. For this, I would say, very similar to my response earlier to Jordi's question, we all need to speak the language of the people that we want to convince. And so when a product designer or an engineer or a researcher, I have found the most effective people in these disciplines speak to me in the context of why is something on strategy and why is it big enough to matter? If somebody can articulate those two things, makes it really, I won't curse, I've made it 51 minutes without it. They make it really, really easy for product folks to prioritize the things for which they're advocating. I would say that this is a natural point of tension, but if we can speak the language that others need to hear in order to make make decisions that we believe in and that we believe are in the best interest of the people we serve, and we give more value to our customers, and therefore we are paid more value in return, like on strategy, big enough to matter, I can't imagine that that's not going to convince your product folks, unless there's other systemic challenges, which we have not covered in that question.
David. So people here are saying that they would definitely buy your book. By the way, I'm taking a lot of notes of what you're saying, quotes and different stuff. So let's go with the last question. We have 5 minutes, so you're gonna have time boundaries. Sorry for that. You think about this like 2 bullets of answer, because this question is actually asking for very specific and practical advice. So Veronica Di Marco is asking, what are practical ways that we, as women already in product management, whether as individual contributors or leaders, can help and support other women to get into product management? And let's start with Adriana, as Megan was the last one to speak.
It's a difficult conversation to have, but speak about salaries. Salaries, like I'm all out for equity, and the more I speak about it, the more I learn, the more I increase my ambition, and it has to be as public information as possible. But it's vulnerable, so there needs to be a certain level of trust with the people that you talk to. Another way as well, I guess from a product leader perspective, is I have to force myself to have an equal number of candidates, both male and female. And that means that I have to reach out for sources, because I think that usually I see more applicants that are male than female. So I try to force it, sourcing as much as possible, and maybe even more like outreach to women, to try to make sure that I'm assessing an equal number of male and female candidates, and establishing very objective criteria on how I'm going to assess them, so that I can, as much as possible, remove my own biases.
Lovely. Megan.
Great. So more often than not, women will hesitate to apply for a role unless they meet, some research says, somewhere north of 80% of the listed requirements of the roles. So make it clear in your job descriptions with your partners in talent acquisition and hiring managers that the framing of requirements is extremely important. And even more so, something that I started doing on our job postings at Hotjar is mentioning not, if you meet more than half of these qualifications or skills or competencies, please apply, to give that explicit invitation to those who might otherwise hold themselves to a higher bar. Second thing, I don't think I have permissions to send links in these comments, but if you Google inclusion and diversity Slack channels, you will find a list of them. And I would recommend change the channel of where you're posting your jobs. This is something I've gone through in many companies. They typically lean on the channels, the distribution channels for job posts, and the same sources as they always have. This is changing, granted, given the state of the world. But if you specifically focus on Slack channels who have folks who are underrepresented on your teams, then you can increase exposure to those communities and share your job posting with them. So this is something that I do for every role that I hire across product design and data at Hotjar as well.
Nice. I can share the link afterwards. Actually, I sent it there. If it's that's the link, okay, perfect. I'm gonna share the link on the comments so that everyone has. Okay, thank you both so much for being here tonight. I'm super glad to have you. I wanted to have you both for long. We've been discussing for long that you should join ProductTank, and finally you're here. And I never saw such an engagement from people, so super happy. And everybody, I wish you to have a lovely night and a better end of the week.
Thank you, Guido. Thank you, everyone.
Cheers.